Everybody, this is Jim at SP500chart.com. It's about 4:15 on April 9th, 2013. Let me read this to you. The website and the video are for educational purposes only. Nothing stated at the site or in the video is intended to be used as investment advice. I can draw lines on charts, but you have to draw your own conclusions from your own research and make investment decisions that are suitable for your personal financial situation. Got to remind you again, I'm not a licensed financial professional, just a guy that draws lines on charts. Let's take a look. First, on a personal note, what a frustrating day for me. I hope you did better than I did. Here the markets were up and I, too, not down big, but I could not catch a break all day long. In a biotech and some other stuff, those are strange beasts. Just ticking me off. So anyway, look, let's take a look at the chart. Mentioned yesterday that the bounce on this 1540 line would set up potentially a head and shoulders, maybe, or possibly even a double-headed pattern of some type. And I want to show you something. We're not ready to call this a top yet, because it would have to confirm itself as a top. But it's looking like some things that we've seen in the past. If you look back to early 2012, not almost the same time of year, a little bit earlier last year, we had this head and shoulders right here. And what I want to show you is look at what the head did. The head was 3 peaks, then that broke, setting up the right shoulder. And you can see that when the right shoulder formed, it in fact was a back test to the broken support line that I've just highlighted here. Now let's just zoom in a little bit to what we've been looking at here. To begin with, we have another support line, just like we had this support line back here. See, here's another 3 tops. The right shoulder was a pullback to support. 3 tops. The right shoulder was a pullback to support to pullback to what used to be support, what is now resistance. Now we have what appears to be the making of 3 tops, just like before. This one's a little different, but just like this one right here, the 3rd top bounced on this longer term support line here, bouncing on this longer term support line. So what's all this mean? Well, it's got a pretty simple moral of the story. And it's the same thing that we really kind of talked about yesterday. And that is, I think this is the line worth watching. This line has been underneath all of our significant bottoms all year long. Going back to the beginning of January, when we had our gap up here and then we hopped into this channel, we tested this line once before. Matter of fact, that line also extends all the way back to November. So really this line right here has been the line of important support on 1, 2, 3, 4 occasions. And they line up pretty darn well. They're not perfect, but you can see that lines up pretty neatly. Now, what's interesting is we also had this line up here that was our resistance line. And you can see where the market right now appears to be pretty impotent as far as reaching this line. So things are starting to look a little bit like they're rolling over. But you have to admit that a day like today does kind of take you off guard, and you think, wow, I thought we would see a little bit more selling pressure. But let me show you one thing. we had identified this slightly wedge-like ascending pattern right here that broke down last week. And today we almost got back into that pattern, but just very, very briefly. And I have redrawn this line, not because I want to make me look smarter. Well, okay, yeah, I do. I want to make me look smarter. But I want to do it with a reason. Definitely we're going to start on this low back here in the middle of March. The other thing that I want to do is I want to try to line this up with as many of these bottoms as I can. And you see that if we line it up here, here, this one falls below, then we have a touch here, here, and here. If we do that, then we end up with a broken support line that today looks like it's just a big old back test. And another thing that happened today is we had identified this red channel. Early in the day, we got above this channel, came back into it. Later in the day, got above it, came back into it. So we've got two things we can watch. For the longer term, we've got our yellow line down here, which I need to move because it jumps around when I scale in and out. Let me show you. If I go back here to the 2-hour chart, now it's above our bottoms. But if I go back up to that 30-minute, there it is right on them. So this has longer range implications. This has very short range implications. So this little red channel, I would say whenever this breaks, that would signify the move down to test this bottom line. And if that breaks, then to test that 1540 area. So nothing really makes me think that this isn't a potential top that is forming. I just have to be honest and tell you that until it forms and breaks out or breaks down, depending on what term you want to use, I can't in good conscience call it a top. All we can do for right now, I think, is look at these little patterns, look at these little channels, and you just kind of put two and two together, add this into your own way of looking at things to decide what you think is best for you to do. So guys, there is your video. Oh, by the way, there you could see we equaled the all-time high back set in early April intraday. We tagged that same level and then started to sell back off. And it's interesting to note too, I mentioned that the Dow Transportation Average had been sort of, apparently it looks like it's ahead of the game, because here we have a head and shoulders top right here that broke down. Now we're pulling back. We've had some broken support lines here. This looks like a pullback. So we may watch the Dow Transportation Average, and we might be getting a heads up on what we may be looking at some weeks down the road in the broader markets. Because this really, in other words, where we are right now, as far as the S&P, is we're somewhere in this area right here. Whereas this chart looks to be running about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. And with that in mind, you can see here's that long-term line that we looked at. Here we just bounced on it in the S&P, and here's the bounce. But here you see where the Dow Jones Transportation Average has broken trend. So that's very interesting, and I think certainly worth keeping an eye on, especially if this continues to form a head and shoulders top here. That could certainly be worth keeping an eye on. So there you have it. for April 9th, 2013. Thank you for your support, and thanks for watching.